Hello, and welcome back to this exploration of the gates of the new year. So we are now going to be looking at what is called stage one, really. Stage one is when the sun moves into gate 38. December the 31st is not the end of the year, only in terms of the Gregorian calendar, but it's not the end of the solar cycle. The end of the year and the true beginning of the new year is when the sun enters the 41st gate, which we know happens on this year, on January the 21st. I didn't get my dates right. January the 21st. So there are many people at this time of year, they go out and they have the expectation that they are leaving something behind. You know, they are starting something new. And of course, they're not putting anything new out there on fertile ground. It's a time for being patient. It's not a time for frantically trying to sow new seeds to make something new happen. There's a time to celebrate the coming of the new year, and these celebrations are really important. But even more important is the way in which we finish this old cycle, completing it correctly and respectfully taking it to its rightful end. So maybe don't get caught in the trap of thinking that something has ended, that we've finished something, because we truly haven't. These coming weeks are very important in terms of resolving the year that we have just experienced and moving forward correctly into the new. This is my office, isn't this glorious? I'm so lucky to be here, presenting you with this material, and slightly surreal as well, because it's actually Christmas Eve today as I'm recording this, and my usual Christmas Eve is in grey old England, and here we are in the sun, and it's sort of 28 degrees, and it's very surreal to see Christmas trees. But this is where we are. This is the conditioning field, and it's interesting to see it from that point of view, this conditioning field that we are in. We began this process of exploring the New Year gates with looking at gate 58 in the last video, like the potential for correction, but a very gentle self-correction coming from a place of joy and stillness. And we move on through these closing stages of the cycle with the sun moving into the 38th gate, the gate of the fighter, the gate of opposition. And the polarity to the 38th gate is the 39th gate of provocation and obstruction. The 38-39 opposition is part of the right angle cross of tension. Have you noticed just how much tension there is around at this so-called New Year? It's a deeply provocative energy, and it's all around us, and it's all around everybody right now, because that's what the sun in its transit does. It affects, it's a global transit. So that tension that we feel, everybody is feeling it, and most people are trying not to feel it. They're trying to make themselves feel more comfortable, and they will do quite a lot to get rid of that feeling of tension and that sort of, why am I feeling like this? This is New Year, I should be feeling happy, I should be out there, It's like, okay, why? Let's ask that question. Why should you be feeling happy, and why should you be feeling like this is the right time to be, to partying and making light of everything? Let's turn that around. Let's maybe try something different, because this energy of tension, it's not an energy for completion. It's an energy that highlights dilemmas. It brings dodgy situations. But traditionally, this is a time when we make our resolutions. You know, those promises usually revolve around, maybe losing weight, or going down to the gym more often, saving money, getting a new partner, being nicer to your partner, eating better, taking up a new hobby, just generally doing something to make life feel better, more comfortable. But then 3 weeks into the traditional New Year, we who started off with such good intentions, we come up against our limitations. We look at ourselves in the mirror and we don't feel so good. Our self-esteem lies in tatters on the floor, along with those resolutions that we tried to make and all of our good intentions. And then we start asking ourselves questions like, why can't I stick to my promises? Why am I so useless? Why am I a good for nothing? All of these kinds of things, and it's, it's not great. When we make these promises and then we fail to keep them, we want to know what's wrong with us and we feel lousy. And of course there's nothing wrong with us. We're not losers, we're not failures, we're not broken. None of us ever. But the not self can have a massive blame party around this kind of thing, when we watch ourselves not follow through, and the feelings that come up then set the tone for our entire New Year experience. And the reason that it's so hard to keep our experience, to keep our resolutions, is simply because this isn't the correct time of year. This isn't when we should be making them. And then also bear in mind, when you look at your own chart, have you got your ego defined? Because if you haven't, then is it even a good idea for you to be making these resolutions in the first place? Are you doing this because you've checked in with your authority and you have that sort of the green light to go ahead? Is there some element of trying to prove yourself? I didn't do it last year, but I'm going to do it this year. Is there any of that kind of energy? And it's interesting to watch it, not judge it. We've moved out of judgment now. We're into fighting now. We're into provocation now, but we don't have to judge any of that. So let's be gentle with ourselves. Let's wait. Let's wait and see what unfolds over the next few weeks. Because right now we are not truly complete with the old energies yet, with that old cycle. We haven't closed off that cycle, and we are not energetically ready to start anything new. This is a time for introspection and for assessment. When we look at nature, there is an innate flow and rhythm to the beginnings, the middles and endings of things. And our solar cycle is no different. There are ebbs and flows to the background frequency. It's a very special time of year. When we look at nature at this time of year, especially in the northern hemisphere, it's a time of quiet. It's a time of drawing in. It's almost as though nature is holding her breath. There are some cultures I read about where nothing new is celebrated at this time of the year. There are no weddings, there are no engagements, there are no parties. It's a time when couples took notice of nature and they took care not to have babies during this time. Most mammals in their natural environment, they don't have their young during these dark months. When I did some research into this, there were only 3 mammals that I came to, the bear, some deer and squirrels. And they will have their young in their little nests, in their dens, and then when the spring comes they'll bring their young out. But those are the only 3 that I found. These dark months are almost not a time for that new beginning, not yet. And the beginning of each year, of course, is also an ending. It's a time of completion. It's a wrapping up. It's an ending of that previous year correctly before shifting gears into the future, into the excitement of a new beginning, a new experience. This is a cycle, and there is a process to be gone through. A cycle must be fully complete so that what is coming has actually got that fertile soil in which to grow. Each new movement of the sun, it brings us to a different place, a different experience, a new opportunity to examine our old experiences. When we wait, we give ourselves room for our emotions or for insights or anything to come up to us. We give ourselves time to open our hearts, to open our minds. We give ourselves the space to breathe properly, for inspiration to be our companion, and for acceptance of our limitations to be realized, making room for change, making room for mutation. So stage 1 of this journey can be characterized by the name of this right angle cross, which is tension, and it begins when the sun enters gate 38 on December the 30th at 17:04 GMT. And it brings the fuel to look back over the past year and to reflect upon what worked and what didn't. Tension is not an energy of completion. This energy isn't about celebrating. It isn't about looking ahead. The energy that is with us for the next 6 days is about introspection. It's an individual gate, so it's about going inside. It's looking at ourselves for ourselves. And we can take whatever path we want through this. We could journal it, we could meditate on it, we could write a song about it, we could dance in the streets about it, or we could sit in our room with the blinds closed. We do whatever we need to do in order to serve ourselves, because this is what this time is for. It's really that, okay, me. What am I here for? What worked for me in this last cycle? What didn't work for me? Did I find purpose in my life? Did I find something worth fighting for? With these sorts of deep and searching questions, take us into our soul, then we can see why so many people might struggle with the idea of going to a party, with having fun. Indeed, there is often a sense of deep melancholy at this time of year, the melancholy of individuality. And now we know why. Generally, we go against this, especially when we're young, when we're not so wise. We fall prey to conditioning, and we put lots of pressure on ourselves to go out and have a good time, find someone to snog at midnight, all that kind of crap, But we get pulled into that, and we try to dull the pain of going against our inner knowing, which is telling us to withdraw and be quiet. Not that there's anything wrong with going out and having a good party if that's what's correct for you. Not at all. But when do we listen to that voice that says, okay, slow down, go inside, close the doors, be with yourself right now? So when it comes to those resolutions, again, I invite you to wait. Does waiting feel like an option for you? Waiting is worth your consideration. Contemplate, be honest with yourself as the ghosts of your Christmas past come up in order to be examined. If you allow the mind to take a stand here, it might well tell you stories about what a crap year you've had, or what went wrong, or what you should have done better, and how you should be nicer to your mother. And it will judge you, and as a result you can suffer. But suffering is of the mind. There is no gate of suffering in human design, in the body graph. Instead, we can notice what comes up, and we can accept it. There is pressure here for sure. Both gates 38 and 39 are pressure gates. They are in the root center, providing fuel for this exploration. And there's tension here, of course. But can you tune into the possibility that we are being invited to explore what helps to keep us finely tuned? Because we could think of tension not as that kind of edge of your seat, nail-biting mental or emotional strain, but as the perfect state of tightness. It's the string of an instrument must be under perfect tension in order to play the correct note. And can you imagine, what a lack of tension might lead to? The word floppy comes to mind. And that's not a happy word, is it? I mean, especially if you're thinking of something like a parachute. This is not where you want to have floppiness going on. Or if you're knitting a jumper, then if you haven't got the right tension when you're knitting a jumper, you're either going to end up with a dishcloth, which is really tight, or you're going to end up with a blanket, neither of which, although they might be fine in their way, are not a jumper. Tension is really important. So maybe what we're looking for here is the balance point between a floppy violin string that cannot play a sweet note and the string that is so tight that it breaks when you touch it. Gate 38 asks us to care about something. It asks us to find something to fight for, to struggle for, or against, perhaps, to find something worth living for. But, and as I said just a moment ago, this is really important, there is no suffering. It's not asking us to suffer. No, there's no suffering in human design, just like there's no hate in human design. And we have the gate 46, for example, where we have one aspect being love of the body, or not. The or not is not hating the body, it's just not loving the body. It's not the same thing. We don't have to polarize to that extent. Suffering, like hate, is an invention of the mind. And we need struggle in our life because struggle defines us, it sharpens us, it hones us. It could be seen as a gift from the higher realms. If you read the stories of some of the most illuminated beings, they struggle, but they do not suffer as they move on their path to transcendence. Struggle polishes them, it tests them, it refines their awareness. The human spirit is indomitable. It is hard to put us down. We just love to reach and stretch and break new ground. Gate 38 gives us the opportunity to acknowledge obstacles, both large and small, by reconciling ourselves to the situation for the time being, for the now. 38, 39, individuality, it operates now. We don't try to make things worse by forcing a situation in the short term or by imposing our will on anything. In the traditional I Ching, one of the names for Gate 38 is the power of the small. And this refers to the idea that even small actions and decisions can have a significant impact when it comes to navigating opposition and finding common ground. This hexagram suggests that small, gentle approaches can be more effective than forceful or aggressive ones when coming up against opposition or obstruction. And the I Ching advises that this is a time when only small things can be achieved successfully. We can concentrate on improving minor things, side issues that maybe have been overlooked until now because all we see is the big things that we think need to be sorted out. And we miss those little things. Maybe now is the time to have room for those. Gate 38 is made up of 2 trigrams. It's made up of fire over lake, which is, so the lower trigram is emotions. This is lake. And emotions, intuition and subconscious. And this suggests that the personal growth and transformation can occur through introspection and self-reflection, rather than by trying to change an external situation. Fire is the upper trigram, the upper 3 lines, and it represents clarity and illumination and higher insights. And this suggests that despite the opposition, it is essential to seek a deep understanding and a deep perspective transcending the immediate obstruction. So Gate 38 can be intense and challenging, but it can also present us with an opportunity for growth and transformation, and it suggests that inner reflection and self-awareness are essential for overcoming opposition and achieving a higher level of understanding and harmony. Gate 38 is not emotional or social. It's not willful, and it's not an awareness gate. It has the fuel to fight, and it is a reflex even, of protection, protecting the integrity of the individual. And it's a gate of deafness. It's part of the channel of struggle, a design of stubbornness, and it's that individual energy. It can be melancholic. It has all of this stuff going on in it. It's a very powerful, complex gate. At the other end of the channel is the splenic gate 28, the gate of the game player. The fear associated with this particular splenic gate is the fear of death, or the fear of dying before we have found something worth fighting for. The 38th gate has the energy to confront adversity built into it, the ability to find joy in the fight for something that is truly worth the effort. As with all individuality, Gate 38 doesn't want to be influenced by anyone else. That's part of the characteristic of deafness that this gate carries. Excuse me. It doesn't want to hear what other people think we should be opposing, or what others think we made mistakes in last year. We want to figure this out for ourselves. This is our journey. This is our introspection. This is us, who we need to do that. Sometimes we need to fight, and we need to fight alone with the challenges that we are facing. Opposition is a feature of this journey, especially this stage. The sense of coming up against opposing forces in almost everything we encounter. It's an important phase because it carries with it a sense of justification. We look to justify what we are fighting for, and through this process we can begin to see if our struggle is legitimate, or maybe where we are fighting for the sake of it, which is fine if we're following our authority, but maybe we also have been conditioned to fight, or we're fighting to please somebody else. We may find ourselves being provoked by others into explaining ourselves, or provoking the other in our turn. It can be a very challenging time, and sometimes our challenge is just to keep transforming, to keep that energy flowing, to keep becoming more of ourselves regardless of our external influences, and to love who we are. So in the presence of this kind of background frequency, can you really tap into why January the 1st is not the best time to make resolutions? On New Year's Eve, the stage that we are in is not about celebrating, it's not about looking forward to the future, it is about looking back. It's the beginning of closing down the cycle, the point where we begin to look back and we begin to question, and we take time to shine a gentle light on the passing of the cycle. When the sun is in gate 38, the opposition, as we know, the personality Earth, is in gate 39. And so this gate transit has this consistent theme of both fighting and provocation. Tension is based on an energy that is looking for a purpose and is ready to struggle to make it happen. It is an energy that understands that life is a struggle, yet it knows that struggle provokes spirit, and it finds its purpose, and that makes it all worthwhile. We can ground ourselves in healthy provocation, finding balance here, and then shining our light onto knowing where to struggle and what to struggle for. The purpose here is awareness of the tension that life needs in order to stay in tune. The essential things in life cannot grow and be maintained without the necessary controls. Both 38, 39, their struggles and their fights are personal because it's individuality. They are not about being told by others what they should be fighting for or struggling for. It's not for them to tell anybody else either. They're just doing their own thing. Leave me alone, I'm in my own struggle, I'm having my own fight. I'm just introspective right now, leave me alone. This is what this time of year is saying to us. Individuality, we know, can be deeply melancholic. And this is reflected in the outer reality. This can be an emotionally dark time of year. Recognizing and honoring this can open a gateway to exploring our inner truth. It can prepare us for gate 61, which is the energy we enter in about 11 days' time. There's nothing inherently right or wrong about any of this. It's just looking at some themes that we could contemplate as we travel this particular time of year. And always, if we're guided by our inner authority, everything we do will be keeping us on our correct trajectory. Biologically, the 38th gate represents the adrenal glands and the amino acid arginine. You may have come across the theory that particles change or respond when they are being noticed, when anyone puts attention on them, and the quality of that noticing impacts that particle. You may have come across the work of Emoto. He worked with water a lot, and water that was sent loving thoughts thrived and stayed fresh for long and had a sweetness to it. Water that was given bad thoughts, bad energy, it turned brackish and sour and was not healthy to drink anymore. Well, our bodies have a lot of water in them. This is something that we could bring some attention to. But also the amino acid arginine, which many of us will probably never have given any thought to if we even know that it exists. We could notice that in our body just by saying its name, arginine. We could put some attention on that and give it some recognition, if it felt right to you to do that. Arginine helps to regulate blood flow, and it is used in the treatment of heart and blood vessel conditions. Congestive heart failure, chest pain, high blood pressure, and coronary artery disease. What do all these issues have in common? They generally indicate a lot of tension in the body. So arginine also helps the kidneys to remove waste from the body. And the root centre itself, where gate 38 is found, it corresponds to the adrenal glands and the kidneys. So you can see the link between the 38th gate arginine and the adrenal glands. It's clear to see. And in human design, the root center is often called the adrenaline center, but there's only actually one gate specifically associated with adrenaline, and that is gate 38, which makes sense when you think that adrenaline is a sort of fight or flight, and gate 38 is about finding something worth fighting for, or running away from, if that's more correct. Adrenaline is released when the body is under stress or tension. So as we close out this session, I'd like to offer you some questions to ponder, some contemplations. Do you know what is worth fighting for? Can you relax into the pulse of inspiration that will come to help you recognize what is worth fighting for? Are you able to struggle without suffering? Can you trust in the timing that is part of the energy of the root center? Can you be kind to yourself as you go through this process? Can you love yourself? And can you honor the unique being that you are? When we live according to our type, strategy, and authority, when we live life as ourselves, we can relax a little bit. In finding the truth of who we are, we learn to trust that we're truly okay. We're in the right place at the right time, simply because we are. That's Gate 38. Thank you very much for joining me for this special journey through the end of the year gates, and in my wonderful Sri Lankan office. Hi! I will be back in 5-6 days time, and we will move into gate 54, but for now let us stay with that energy for the struggle and finding what is worth fighting for, and looking for that and finding the joy in that, because there is a lot of joy in the root center. It still has all those energies, even if they're not activated. It still has the joy of 58. It still has the stillness in 52. Let those echo through as we sit in this energy. So until I see you next time, thank you so much, and I'll be back soon. As always, go gently.